Decision making is difficult, and with the ever increasing number of options we have in the world, it's only getting more difficult. But in that same vein, because we're increasing the number of options, we're also inadvertently increasing the number of options that we have to make on a daily basis. Just think about that for a second. How many decisions did you make today? How many did you make this week? You have no clue, right? Me either. Now think about how much time was probably wasted trying to make all those decisions. Mind blowing, right? Now, yes, all of the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis are cumbersome and they take time, but if we're being honest, most of them are trivial. You know, what coffee you want to order, what shirt you want to wear today, what do you want to have for dinner. In the grand scheme of things, every single one of those decisions could have been something completely different and your life would be exactly the same today. There'd be no change. But even still, it probably took you forever to decide, right? I mean, struggling to decide what you want to have for dinner is a holistic human experience. It takes so much time and it's so difficult, and yet it has no long-term effect on our lives. Unless, of course, you're making unhealthy choices on a regular basis. Don't do that. But if a decision as trivial as that is so difficult to make, then how much more difficult is it to make decisions that actually do affect our lives? What do we want to dedicate our lives to? What goals do we want to try and achieve? These decisions are the ones that keep you up at night. You know, they give you nightmares, they increase stress levels, they create anxiety. I mean, these decisions are some of the most important that you will ever make in your life, so it's not just as simple as choosing something. And with all the different life paths that we have available to us, how do we know which one's the right one for us? How do we know which one's going to be the most fulfilling? Well, I think you already know the answer, but that answer scares you. Before I break down why though, if you're enjoying this video so far, please be sure to hit that subscribe button because it really supports the channel and it lets me know that, you know, these videos are something that you guys are looking forward to, so thank you. Now, maybe this is just my personal philosophy, but I really do believe that 9 times out of 10, we already know what we want in life. We know, but that answer scares us because of what making the decision could bring along with it. For one, you could fail. You know, you could spend hours a day for weeks, months, or even years working towards something that just doesn't work out, and that would be a miserable experience. Nobody likes to fail, and if that failure comes after tons of hard work, then the pain can be even worse. Another reason why deciding on what you really want might scare you is because of what that decision means for who you currently are as a person. You're comfortable where you are. You know, you're comfortable working that shitty 9 to 5. You're comfortable spending all your free time watching TV and playing video games. You're comfortable not having to work towards becoming a better version of yourself. But that comfort is a lie. It's simply fear disguised as complacency. You're accepting what you deem to be your reality because anything else would be too different, too difficult, too risky. So you decide not to do it. But that raises a question. If what we want is too scary to do, then why don't we just choose something else that maybe is on par or similar and do that instead? You know, after all, doing anything is better than doing nothing. Even with that option of settling for second best, we still get stuck up on the options and we end up making no decision. And the reason for that is because, again, you know what you want, and this by default makes any other decision the wrong one. If you don't decide to work on the thing that you actually want, then anything else will automatically feel like a failure. So with all that being said, what can we do about it? You know, how can we stop freezing in the face of difficult decisions? Well, just like you, I also struggle to make decisions sometimes, but the difference is that there are 3 things that I do on a regular basis to help me speed up the decision-making process. So keep watching to find out how. First and foremost, above all else, trust your intuition. Those gut feelings, you know, those random moments where you're like, I don't know why, but I feel like this is the right decision. It's not random. At least I don't believe so. And the reason for that is because intuition doesn't just come out of thin air. You know, it's built up over time through your lived experiences, you know, through the wisdom you've gained during your life. And it's there for a reason, you know, because throughout human history, we've had to make split decisions, you know, when things get dangerous. When you're face to face with a lion, you don't have to sit here and think, oh, what should I do? You know, your intuition tells you, I need to go, I need to run, I need to protect myself, I need to fight. But you don't just sit there and wait to get mauled. And believe it or not, this is not just pseudoscience. You know, there's actual research behind this. In fact, there's a psychology professor and researcher at DePaul University named Joseph Mickels, who's found that when it comes to complex decisions that have like multiple factors that need to be considered, intuition often helps you make a better decision than if you were to deliberate for like hours and hours, you know, trying to make a decision. The actual research paper will be linked down below. Now, aside from all the science-based stuff, you know, I've talked about before on the channel that I'm a believer in God, you know, and I think that sometimes when ideas pop into your head at random or when you feel like this decision is the right one and you don't really know why, it's because those thoughts weren't from you, they were placed in you. Now, if you don't believe in God or a higher power, maybe this doesn't make much sense, but I've had several moments in my life, you know, where I'm faced with a decision and I have no like prior knowledge or historical information that would help me with this decision. But for whatever reason, I feel like answer A is the correct one. And there may be nothing to support that answer, but something in me just keeps telling me, answer A, answer A, answer A. And I go with it and it ends up working out fabulously. And if that doesn't come from within you, if you don't have any prior knowledge on the topic you're deciding about, then it stands to reason that it came from an external source. I choose to believe that's God. Okay, the second thing I would suggest to help you make quicker decisions is to set a deadline. Now this one's pretty straightforward because all you have to do is say, I will decide on this by X date. Now, of course, you need to make that time frame reasonable. You can't make it too short or too long because then you'll never decide. You'll never have time to decide. For small decisions, I like to give myself about 24 hours to think about it. Bigger decisions might require a little more time, but it's hard to say depending on what the decision might be. It could be a week, it could be a month, if you have a little more time to actually think things through. But for the most part, I don't know if I would go more than a month, personally. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with this is that when you set your time frame, you cannot procrastinate. You actually have to spend time thinking about the pros and cons of the decision you're going to make. Because if you don't, you'll limit your time to a much smaller window in which you may not even have time to actually weigh the different pros and cons, and that could also lead to indecision. One thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to big decisions, I like to give myself a little bit extra time just to, look at alternatives. Because you never know, right? There could be a better option than the two that are directly in front of you that you're currently wrestling with. So sometimes it's a good idea to just give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. If you wanted to give yourself a week to decide, maybe you give yourself a week and a day so that you can spend that last day thinking, okay, now that I've made my choice, are there any better alternatives? If there are, you found a better option. And if there aren't, then you're good to make your decision. Simple as that. Okay, the third thing you should do is consult others, ask others for advice. Oftentimes when making a decision, we're too close to the situation to see the bigger picture. This actually reminds me of the story of the 3 blind men and the elephant, where there's 3 blind guys and they all approach an elephant and try to figure out what it is. One approaches from behind, feels the tail and says, oh, this is a rope. One approaches from the side, feels the body and how high up it goes and says, oh, this is a wall. One approaches from the front, feels the long trunk and says, oh my God, it's a snake. But if they were to all zoom out or all get together and talk about it, then they realize that it's an elephant. It's none of those things. But because they were each only seeing a small picture, what each one could feel, they had to make a decision based on what they knew. Whereas an outside person that was standing back and could see clearly, or a blind person that went around the whole elephant and felt it all, then they could easily tell what it was because they get the whole picture. That's how it is with decision making, because a person on the outside that's not, the one struggling to make the decision, they understand the pros and cons a little better and can help you make a decision more informed. Now, if you don't have anybody that you can go to for whatever you're struggling with, then maybe you can try Alex Hormozi's method of asking his future self. This is something I found really interesting, and essentially it works by you try to separate yourself from the situation and you pretend you're you 10, 20, 30 years from now, looking back on whatever you're going through right now, and you give your current self advice. Personally, I've never tried this, but like I said, it sounds interesting, and Alex has shared that, he's come up with some great advice by doing this, so it might be worth giving it a go. Okay, I know I said 3, but here's a 4th tip I want to share. Take this bonus value. Always start simple. Y'all remember that acronym KISS? Keep it stupid simple? That's all you gotta remember for this one. You gotta keep things so simple, even a stupid person can do them. Humans have a natural tendency of overcomplicating things, and in reality, oftentimes the most obvious solution is the right solution. This kind of goes back to trusting your intuition, because sometimes we get this little feeling where it's like, oh, I think it's this one, but it seems too simple to really be the right one, and you just gotta trust yourself sometimes. Anyway, these are some of the things that I do on a regular basis to help me make decisions, but they're not gonna work for everybody, so if all else fails, my advice to you would simply be, just decide. Make your decision and then commit to it long enough to see where it leads you. If you're not happy with it once you get there, then take the loss and start over. Medieval philosopher Maimonides said, the risk of a wrong decision is preferable to the terror of indecision. So just make a choice. Remember that most things in life aren't permanent and you're allowed to fail. In fact, you're required to fail. Failure is not the end of the process, it's simply a part of the process that shows you what you're doing wrong. And once you decide, please, for the love of all that is holy, take action on your decision. Don't just decide and then set it aside for a later time that may or may never come. Now, if you've made your decision, but you keep getting caught up on that part where you take action, then maybe what you need to do next is check out this video where I talk about why you keep defaulting to no action and how to fix it. But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.